from our recording back there. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being so patient this morning. Today we have the great honor of hosting Mrs. Jasmina Dervisevic-Cesic at Stoughton High School. Jasmina, as you've probably read, grew up in Visegrad, Bosnia, a beautiful town located along the Drina River. In the early 1990s, she witnessed how ethnic hatred, violence, and fear changed her once peaceful community. Jasmina lost many members of her family to the Serbian campaign of ethnic cleansing against Muslims. Her story is one of horror and personal tragedy, and also of kindness, resilience, and hope. She is a representation of how humanity can persevere through even the darkest of times. We are so fortunate to have her here today to share this important history with us. I hope that you will all now join me in welcoming Jasmina to the stage.
Good morning, guys, or my friends. Let me ask you a first question. What are you doing here? Or what am I doing here? Let me tell you something. Someone once asked, what is the difference between heaven and hell? Well, in hell, they say people have long, unbendable arms, and they are not able to feed themselves. And in heaven, people with the same long, unbendable arms learn that if they face each other in rows, they can feed each other. And that is the reason, guys, why you're here and I'm here. So we can face each other, we can feed each other with information, and facing history is very important. Just like facing any problem in your life. I heard you're middle school. So for majority of you, probably facing problem with your grades is probably your main concern. So let me give you an example. Let's suppose you took a math test and you got a bad grade. And for some reason you choose not to talk about it, not to tell your parents about it, but you can choose whatever. Unless you're like some superstar magician, your grade will still be there. It doesn't matter that you don't talk about it. The only way to fix it is to go back, see your mistakes, and learn from it. And that is the reason why I'm here. So we do not repeat the same mistake. A great man like Martin Luther King once said, our lives will begin to an end the day we became silent about things that matters. So facing history matters. Our lives matters. And that's why we survivors keep talking. As hard as it is for us, for me and any other survivors, is to tell our story over and over, we also know that it's very important and it's the only way to protect our future. And that is the reason I wrote my book, The River Runs Soul, Transfit. So I won't repeat because I heard you've been guys reading my book, some of you read the books, what is in the book, but I wanna tell you about the book and how the book came about. So I'm gonna start with the title of the book, The River Runs Soul, Transfit. The title actually refers to the Drina River in my hometown. And it was the river where I grew up swimming basically in that river. It was also our beach. It was the place where I practiced for my swimming because I was a swimmer when I was your age, where I practiced for my swimming competitions. It was also a place where I met my people, my friends, and we would like play guitar and hang around just like you do. We didn't smoke any weed or anything. Guys, pay attention, laugh. That was the reason I added that, so I see you're listening to me. And it was also the river where I met my first boyfriend, who later actually became my husband. But it was also the river that took lives of my brother Summer, who was only 15. He was killed on the bridge over that river, and he was thrown into that river with another boy his age. 2 of my swimming teammates were also killed on the banks of that river. And my best high school friend, Nazir, was killed with his father while his sister and mother watched. Remains of my best high school friend Nazir, and my swimming teammates were found. And the remains of my brother were never found, and they're still lying in that river. So the river that we enjoyed so much and that we loved became the biggest mass grave in Bosnia, and it still is. And that is why the title is called The River Unsolved, Unsaved. So I want to tell you a reason why I wrote my book and how the book came about. When I was your age, we didn't have exactly, our school system was a little bit different in Bosnia than yours here. We didn't have middle school. We had elementary school and high school. Middle school, elementary school was basically from grade 1 to grade 8, and high school was from 9 to 12. So when I was in elementary school, we also had clubs like you do here, science club, math club. So I was a part of literature club. I didn't know anything about writing the book, but I did write poems. Oh, thank you. My mouth is getting dry. So when I was your age, sorry. Pen, paper, and I were actually best friends. Every time I got emotional or I had a crush on some boy, I would write a poem. And there was also a competition in writing poems in my country. And this time, when you win a competition, you got to read your poem in front of the famous Yugoslav authors. So this time, I actually won, and I got to read my poem in front of the famous Yugoslav authors. And the subject was, it was Women's International Day, which is March 8th, and Women's International Day in Bosnia is also Mother's Day. So the subject was to write something happy about mothers. I wrote about kids that didn't have mothers. I don't know where the inspiration came from, because I didn't know anyone that didn't have actually mother. But I just thought of that minority group that didn't have mothers. So thinking about others got me to first place, and I got to read my poem in front of the authors. And the reason I told you this, it's because one of things that inspired me to start writing my book, even though it was very hard, because I started writing my book a year after I came to the US, and I came to the US without speaking a word of English. So it was only a year after. And the other reason I decided to write my book, it's because, as I said, facing history is important, and history repeats. During World War II, my country of Bosnia, as you can see here, was part of Yugoslavia. And during the German invasion, my town, that was like mostly Muslims and Serbs, got divided. Some Serbs decided to join Germans, and they were part of this group called Chetniks, which were Serbs nationalists that decided, who were actually some of our neighbors. So most of my grandmother's family members were burned alive during World War II. She was one of the few survivors. Between World War II and the war that broke in 1990s in our country, my grandmother would tell us this story. But back then, and when I was your age, living modern life in modern Yugoslavia, when brotherhood and unity is cherished, I thought what happened to my grandmother was ancient history. It can never happen again. And guess what? The same grandmother who was 85 years old was burned alive in her own house 50 years later. So we don't want to repeat those same mistakes. And the reason it happened again, even though she was told us, there were no movies about it because we lived in a communist country. We tried to suppress, instead of working with the problems, we tried to avoid it, ignore it, suppress it. It didn't help. 50 years older, that hate submerged. So my grandmother didn't have anything, like any picture to show us about it, and there was no movie, as I said, about it. So I feel what is not documented, it did not happen. So my book was supposed to be a document of what had happened in my country. The other reason was also, when I came here, guys, in 1993, as a first Bosnian refugee to the United States, there were no Bosnians. There were no anyone from my country that I could talk to. And I had the only one I had was my sister-in-law, who was American, was born here, originally from ex-Yugoslavia, but was born here. And she had a gallery that her family owned for years, like more than 40 years at Harvard Square. And most of the days, she would take me to Harvard Square to walk around, and we would go there, and people would be very happy. At Harvard Square, there was always like singers, performances, and I would start crying. It bothered me so much. It was during that time, 1993, when my country went through horrible war, and it became worse and worse. Some days, like my brother, Azam, who was in Gorazde, that was one of the UN safe areas, I'll tell you a little bit about it later, was about to fall. So there were days we didn't hear from him at all, and we didn't know if he was dead or alive. And he was a husband of my sister-in-law who was like pregnant. I was about to give a birth to my niece in Boston, in one that I told you that now. And I felt like people, something is horrible is happening in the middle of Europe in the 20th century. There is something that we can do, that we should do to stop the killing of innocent civilians. So I thought my book should be a message. People reading about it will learn and start like doing something. And I also felt, yes, the Serbs killed like most I had. They killed my two brothers, my husband, I lost my arm. They took part of my country, they took my hometown, but what they didn't take and what they couldn't take was my voice, my will to act. And writing the book was actually taking an action. And the most important, and that was one actually important reason, I also wanted to keep my brothers and my sisters and everyone else that died alive. And I also didn't want my fellow citizen of the United States, my new home country, to associate my country only with the war, because there were so many times when I went to some events or the street, people would ask me, who are bad guys, who are good guys, what is going on in your country? It was all that they talk about the war. That's why I started my book when I was 15. I wanted to tell people that there was a life in my country before the war, a happy life. My life wasn't probably much different than yours is now. I had very happy childhood, and I wanted to know people that there was a happy life before the war and that we hope to return to. So now we're kind of going towards that goal. So in 1993, I tried to gather like my teachers, as I said, I didn't speak a word of English, but I started going to a Jewish vocational service in Boston for my ESL classes. And after that, I went to Harvard Extension. And again, I have to brag a little bit. At Harvard Extension, there was also competition in writing. There was a subject called what learning English means to you. So there were like, like more than 800 contestants. I won the third prize. And that and then after Harvard Extension School, I applied in college. And guess what, guys? When you run from the war, from your country, and also I want to tell you this something, all this talk about refugees, I don't want to like go from the subject, but I want to touch a little bit about this talk today in the world about refugees. I just want to let you know that no one becomes a refugee out of their own will. It's not easy, trust me, to leave your home, your family, and everyone else too. You become a refugee because you're persecuted and you're running for your life. And yes, I am a Muslim and I'm a former refugee, but I'm also an American now, and I'm not any different than you are. So I wanted to just let you know that a refugee doesn't mean someone is bad coming to your country or to your town. So when I applied to college, I didn't have my high school diploma. So president of that college told me, we cannot accept you, don't even have a high school diploma. They gave me a test to take, so I took the test. I passed math and English that they tested me on. And there was another problem. I didn't have enough money. So they improvised something for me, thinking, oh, poor this refugee with broken English, she probably will never get this. They told me they will give me $4,000 if I graduate with all A's. And guess what? I did. And you guys have to know, and if I could do it, you can do it. Where there is a will, there is a way, I say. With hard work, you can achieve everything or anything. In the meantime, getting there, I also want to tell you a little bit about my life afterwards. After college, in the meantime, actually, I got married. My husband also is a refugee from Bosnia. He came here through Red Cross. He was in Croatian concentration camp for almost 3 months. So I guess our tragedies brought us together. And he helped me through my college. And we have 2 kids. My daughter is 16 and a half, Layla, and Alam just turned 11. And I'll show you later pictures of them also. And when I graduated from college, I started working for a small real estate company. And I helped them with paperwork and taxes and stuff. But I was the first Bosnian who knew something about real estate. And many Bosnians knew me because when they start coming to the United States, I helped them with small things. For you guys, it probably would be nothing, but for them it was a lot, like opening bank account, teaching them what credit history means in the United States, because in Bosnia there is no credit history. Everything we bought was cash. It wasn't credit history didn't matter. Applying for jobs, filling out their application. Small stuff like that helped me later in my real estate. So what goes around comes around. Those same people came to me to help them to find their apartments, and that's when my boss told me, you have all these leads, you should go for a real estate license. I didn't know anything about real estate licensing, but I took a test. I passed the test first time I took. And I became a real estate agent in 1998. And after a few years, having my own clientele, I thought I shouldn't be working for someone else. So in 2006, I became a broker, and I opened my own real estate company. And I had my real estate company, Sincere Real Estate Services, since last year, but I joined forces with Dennehy Realty, that company in Cambridge that I'm working with now, because we're doing like property management rental. So when you guys graduate from high school, remember I'm in real estate if you need an apartment or a house. And besides all that, I also talk, just as I do now. And as I told you just at the beginning, as hard as it is, I think it's also rewarding and it's important. And let me give you one example. And Judy, who is here with me, she was actually there that day. We do, besides me talking by myself, we also do genocide panels. So a few years back, it was 2013, 14, something like that, we had genocide panel at Tufts University. And I was talking about my life and what was going in my hometown at that time. A monument to all fallen victims in my hometown, which were about 3,000, was unveiled. And there was a word, genocide, that local Serb officials scraped from the monument because it offended local people over there. It bothered us a lot. We did many protests and everything, but it didn't help. But the word genocide, that monument is still not there, and I'll show you that pictures now when we go through pictures. And this boy, when I finished, he was going to stand up, but he couldn't. He was still sitting, and he was about to ask a question. And the moderator asked him, "Can you please stand up?" And he said, "I would if I could, but my legs are shaking." And he said, "I am from Bosnia. I'm from East Sarajevo, which is the Republic of Srpska, under Serbs' control. And my girlfriend is actually from your hometown." And I knew a little bit about this. There was a talk, but I didn't know anything that had happened to you or to your town. I know my parents went somewhere, like my father went somewhere and her father went somewhere, but they never told us where they went or whom they fight and that stuff. And I told him, "You're so courageous. If you could stand up in front of more than 400 students to say that, I mean, let me give you a hug." So he went to one side and I went to the other side, and we met like on the side and we gave each other a hug. And it was maybe one Serb, but that's where you start. From one, and it goes to the second and third one. And let me also give you an example that happened to me just like a month ago, and why I feel like we should talk and we should share. I don't know, guys, how much you know about like what refinancing means, but my husband and I were about to refinance our house, and a mortgage broker was referred to us. So that mortgage broker came to our house, and he started talking about everything and anything. He wasn't like one of those regular mortgage brokers. He was one like who likes to ask personal questions and that, and we start talking about politics. And he asked me about President Donald Trump. I'm sorry, I have to mention. And I'm sorry, guys, if I offend any one of you, but I have to say what is in my heart and what I think, what I believe in. So I said, I cried. I told him, I cried when he became president. And he said, "Why? I think he's great." And I said, "That's your opinion." And then he started asking me about me and my husband, and we talked like he stayed in our house for 3 hours. Then my kids came back from swimming, and he saw them and he started talking about my kids and how active they are and all that. And he left. The next day, he came again so we can sign the papers, and he's talking to us again. And I told my husband, let's keep to business. I don't want him to sit in our house for 3 hours, and I don't want to talk about Donald Trump. Let's just finish our refinancing. And so we finished, and he's about to leave, and he shakes my husband's hand, and then he was about to shake mine, and he was like, oh, you're giving me your left hand because I like Donald Trump and you don't? And I'm like, Kevin, are you blind? I don't even have right hand. Didn't you notice first time when you were here, I told you what happened in my country. I told you that my husband was in concentration camp. And he was like, I thought you were joking. And then he was like, anyway, there was a war in your country. Who started the war? Muslims, right? And I'm like, Kevin, I am a Muslim. And he was like, no, you're not. You don't even look like Muslim. And I'm like, how do Muslims look like? Can I please give you my book? There is another reason for my book. I actually gave him my book. He read my book. He's totally, completely different person. Or he lies to me, I don't know. But he, he really changed afterwards. He doesn't talk about things that he talked before. He tried to find things out. So that's what I want you to talk to your friends. Because, love always helps. Hate, if you hate other person, that person may not even know that you hate him, but that hate can destroy you. So I want to go through my pictures and explain. I have to, as I said, facing history is important, so I have to give you a little history about my, I'm not going to talk about politics, just a little bit about history in my country. Well, I was born in 1973, and don't guys count. And until 1991, when I was a senior in high school, my country, Bosnia, was part of Yugoslavia. And as you can see, Yugoslavia consisted of 6 republics: Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, and Macedonia. Was a place where Muslims, Jews, Orthodox Serbs, and Croats lived next door to each other. And they intermarry. They were like villages that were completely one religion, but most cities were very integrated. But in and also Yugoslavia and Yugoslavian army was one of the 4th largest army in Europe. And it was mandatory to serve in the army. Every boy 18 and older, including my siblings and my husband, had to serve in the Yugoslav army. So that Yugoslav army in 1991 attacked Slovenia, which was the furthest away from Serbia and on the border with Austria. But because of Slovenian population that didn't have so many Serbs, the war lasted only 7 days, and it quickly expanded into neighboring Croatia. So supported by the local Serbs that made 12% of Croatian population, the Serbs and the Yugoslav army, supported by those nationalists, killed so many there and destroyed city. And they even destroyed this, I don't know if you heard about this ancient city, Dubrovnik, which is on the Croatian sea coast. And it's a beautiful city. They completely destroyed it. It was rebuilt later. And then in 1992, in April of 1992, they moved to Bosnia when Alija Izetbegović, who passed away, president back then, president of the Bosnian multi-ethnic government, asked for independence, and it was recognized as an independent by European Union and the United States. And after that, actually, in 1992, when it was recognized, no one intervened. So by 1993, that's what I was telling you, when I came here, my country, Bosnia, newly recognized country, was almost falling to the Serbs. Three-quarters, actually, almost three-quarters of the country was falling to the Serbs, and it was ethnically cleansed, including my hometown, as you know. And the UN refused to do anything, and that's when I told you that I'm going to tell you later what happened in 1993. The UN created 6 safe areas in Bosnia, and almost each of those 6 safe areas that they created fell to the Serbs and was ethnically cleansed. What the UN did in Bosnia, they said they disarmed Bosnians that didn't have much weapons anyway, and they said, we're gonna protect us, we're gonna protect you. Well, when the Serbs came, they just left the town. And that's what happened in Srebrenica, where the biggest massacre since World War II happened in Europe. Not almost, but around 8,000 men and boys were killed within just few days. And among those killed actually was my sister-in-law, father, and her 2 brothers. It was horrible, but unfortunately it was something that triggered the world to do something. So only a few months later, the Dayton Peace Agreement was signed that ended the war in Bosnia. So the war in Bosnia ended in 1995. Now all these countries are totally independent. Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, Macedonia, and Montenegro. They're all independent countries. How I go to the next slide? I don't want to press something that I... Oh, arrow, okay. So this is my hometown. And I don't know, guys, how much you remember from the book, but that corner over there that looks like an island, that's our famous sports center. It was only a few meters from my apartment building, and it was bounded by the rivers, the Drina on one side, the Rzav on the other. It's the place where my friends and I met like almost every day. Our teachers, our high school was also close by, and we would go there, play music and that. And that sports center, unfortunately, after the war was also destroyed. There is a Stone City, now it's called Stone City, that was built in that place. And that bridge down there is the bridge where they took my brother and 2 other boys, his age, and that's where he was killed, on the bridge down there. And this bridge over here, it's the famous bridge. It's called Bridge on the Drina, and there is also a book about it by Ivo Andrić, who won a Nobel Prize. The book is actually translated in like 40 languages, so if you go to Boston Public Library, you can find this book in English. It's called The Bridge on the Drina River, and it's a very good book to read. It tells you a lot about history and my hometown. And that's the bridge where my best friend, Neza, was killed. And this is like the closer picture of a sports center. Inside the center, there were like tennis courts, soccer courts, and all that. And yeah, that's it. And this is my swimming team. As I told you, back then, when I was your age or a little bit older, the difference between us was just a matter of religion. I didn't look at any of my friends any differently because they belong to different religion. So some of us there are Serbs, some of us Muslims. The second one from the right is actually me, if you can recognize me. Next to me is my older sister, who was our best swimmer. And one who is sitting on the left, and the third one are actually those 2 that were killed. And their bodies were found a few years ago on the banks of Drina River. And some of them are Serbs that, some of them we stayed in touch with them, and some of them we didn't. I didn't tell you guys this, and it's not in the book, but right when I was about your age, I also played ping pong. And I was actually the best one in my hometown, and I teach the younger kids, I coach younger kids. So all the way on the right, it's me, when I was about your age. Next to me is my friend Zorca, who was a Serb. Next to her is another friend of us who was also a Serb. It didn't matter to us. And all the way on the left is my younger sister who played ping pong with us. And this is my high school class. This is our senior year. Second one from my side with blonde hair and green sweater, it's me. And over me is who is holding my shoulders, is my best high school friend who was killed with his father. So that was him. You can kind of put face to. This is my high school graduation, and the reason you're seeing this picture, it was taken in 1991 when I graduated from high school. It was less than a year before the war, and we were the last generation to graduate. All the way on right, who has the best legs, it's me. And I'm just kidding. And next to me is my best friend, Selma. Thankfully, she's still alive. And next to her is my other best friend, Diana. They're still my best friends. They live in Bosnia, and every year I go to Bosnia, I get to see them. This is capital city of Bosnia, Sarajevo. I just wanted you guys to see how it looked like before the war. This is 1984 Winter Olympic. Sarajevo, the capital city of Bosnia, actually hosted 1984 Winter Olympics, and this was like a few years before the war when Yugoslavia was famous for its brotherhood and unity, and it was probably one of the safest places on earth. You could go anywhere, anytime. Crime was almost to zero before the war started. And I just wanted to let you know so you see how quickly problems can escalate and the war can start. And this is the USA team during the 1984 Olympics. Sorry guys who didn't look the best in those cowboy hats. This is how Sarajevo, the picture you saw before, it's the same city, and this is how it looked during the siege of Sarajevo when I was there in 1992, 1993. Almost every building was completely destroyed. This is, and you can guys read, one of the examination when they see like remains. I know it's hard to talk about this when you see remains and bones of start like coming up, they start digging, and that's when they found my best high school friend and my two swimming teammates. Unfortunately, as I said, remains of my brother have never been found yet. And this is a picture that was taken during the war. Second one from the left is my oldest brother who got killed in the war, and those are my friends. This was in one of the Sarajevo cafes. Even though it was during the war, we tried to live kind of normal life in the besieged city. We didn't want to give up. And this is my brother, Samer, who was killed. This is the only picture we had of him because, as I said, when we had to leave, we couldn't bring anything with us, so that was the only picture that we had of him. This is the bridge again where he was killed. And by the way, talking about this, I forgot to mention to you that a man who killed my brother called Milan Lukic was actually captured in Argentina a few years ago, and he was brought to Hague. This was one good thing that the UN did. They created this international court in Hague that all criminals from Yugoslavia region was brought to justice. So my father, who survived concentration camp after 3 years, got to be witness, and he actually faced my brother murderer over there. So he was sentenced to a life in prison. And this is me and my husband, as you read in the book. The picture was taken only a few days before I lost my arm. He was blown in half. We were, I don't know if you remember from the book, we were holding hands, and I was on my way to work. was assisting in Koševo Hospital, the main hospital of Sarajevo, during the siege, because I always like to help, and I thought there was something I could do to help wounded people. And on my way to work, that's when the grenade exploded next to me and my husband. He was blown in half, and I lost my arm, and there were probably around 30 people wounded among us, and 4 dead. And this is the monument in my hometown that I told you about. It was unveiled a few years ago, and the genocide word is still missing because it, as I said, the local officials made it scrape from the stone. This is something what is happening every year in Bosnia. This is a line of red chairs. Each chair presents a fallen victim of the siege of Sarajevo. There are 11,000 and something, 11,541 citizens were killed during the siege. And during the siege, I have to tell you, it's not like that you were just bombed. We didn't have access to drinkable water. We didn't have food. The only food that we got was from UN sometimes. And I always ask myself, what's the difference if you die with full stomach or empty stomach? Because there was nothing else that they did back then. And this is the picture of me and my 2 kids. It was in 2014. It was first time I took my kids to my hometown to see where my brother was killed, to see the grave of my older brother, and to show them where I grew up, to show them the river and everything. As you can see, swimming is in our genes. So this is my son, Alem, who just turned 11, and this is from Houston, Texas. I don't know, guys, if you know about amateur athletic competition for the United States. So every year happens in different city. This summer it was in Houston, Texas. So Alem got his medal for breaststroke. And one who got a 3rd place, Layla, that's my daughter. She's 16 and a half. She's also a swimmer, as you can tell. And she got bronze for, she's a long distance swimmer, so this was for 1,653 medal, and she got few others. Layla also started, I have to brag again, because my biggest pride are my kids, I have to tell you. Layla started working as a lifeguard at Harvard University, and just before last night she came home with Harvard and umbrella and she said, Mama, guess what? I was Employee of the Month. This is my family, and the picture was taken just during April vacation. My family, my husband, whom I've been married for 22 years now, and it was also our, April 15 was our 22 anniversary. So we went with 2 kids to Niagara Falls in Ontario to see Niagara Falls. And this is a picture not of me, not of you, but universal picture. I call it pure life. And I want you to know, guys, that a crime has no color, race, or religion, and neither does love. So this is how we are brought into this life, and why can't we exit this life like this? Innocent, pure love. And that's all I have for you guys. I hope this stays for you. I hope my book inspired you. And I also want to tell you that I'm a very open person. So I want us to have discussion. Any question that you have, if I know an answer, you will get it. Thank you.